You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Thanks so much for joining me here today. Can't wait to get back into part 2 of our Cabral HouseCalls, where we're going to be answering our community's questions. We'll probably get to about 8 or so, I would say, today. So many great questions yesterday. I hope that you were able to tune in. We talked about Hashimoto's. We talked about dynamic neural retraining. We talked about gut-based health. We talked about meat substitutes. We talked about dermatographia. We talked about balancing the immune system. We talked about whiplash. What else did we chat about? Well, we talked about whether you should be plant-based or eat meat, whether you should raise your children that way or not. And we also spoke about, what was this last one? We talked about tightening the skin. We talked about rejuvenating the skin. So hopefully you checked out that show. Now, today's show, I never look at the questions really ahead of time. All I do is my team sends them over. It's all been populated. We answer them in the order they've come in. So we're starting with June 15th. That's the question. So what are we looking at? About 8 weeks or so behind, right? July, August, yes. About 8 weeks behind. Starting to catch up a little bit. We were at 12 weeks, and now I'm happy to say we're catching up a little bit. And remember, like a lot of people out there right now, simply head on over to cabralsupportgroup.com and you can get your answer to your question pretty much in the same day. Within 24, 48 hours in our group, a lot of other people will weigh in as well. And I think that can be really helpful too, rather than waiting for me to answer these on the Cabral HouseCalls. So since I want to dedicate as much time as possible to answering our global community's questions, what I'm going to do right now is dive into our first question. First question today is from Zoe. Zoe is asking, "Hi, Dr. Cabral. I'm very curious about your opinion on the differences in workout and nutrition strategies between men and women. Do you think men and women need to work out significantly differently? And if so, what do you feel works best for each? And I would love to know what you think about macronutrient intake. Do you think men and women need the same ratio of fats, carbs, and protein, or if there's a difference in how much our body utilizes it and how we burn it? Appreciate your opinion so much. Can't wait to hear your thoughts about this. Thanks a million, Zoe." All right. Zoe, happy to answer this. And I have answered it before, but I'm happy to answer this again. Men and women should not work out differently. So they should not work out differently, and they should not eat differently. They really shouldn't. I wrote a book called A Man's Guide to Muscle and Strength. I wrote that for the largest book publisher on textbooks for health professionals, but it's for everyday population, and it's for women too. But the publisher owns all of it, and they can name it whatever they want. So they decided to make it a book for men, even though it's all of my workout programs for men and women that we train. We do not train men and women different out of the hundreds of thousands. I mean, it's well over that of training sessions we've done here at our Body Transformation Center. So no, we do not train them different. Okay, I'm going to get to why we do it differently for some people in a moment. And nutrition-wise, we don't do that different either. We really don't. Now, on average, men and women will eat less calories for women than men will. Part of that is that women have a slightly larger percentage of body fat than men. So they're a slightly less metabolic. So for example, when a male is in great shape for them, they're going to be somewhere between 8% to 18%. Okay? I talked about that actually just a couple podcasts ago. Now, when a woman's in great shape, she's going to be somewhere between 14% to about 20%, 22%. You might say, well, why can't they go as low? Well, what happens is it actually begins to affect the hormones. Women begin to lose their menstrual cycle. It's not healthy for the female's body. So, and also naturally and genetically, women are going to carry a little bit more body fat. And that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. It actually helps to always have a better supply of energy. That's one of the reasons for body fat in the first place, is that it inside of the adipose tissue. So the body fat itself contains a lot of stored energy, a lot of stored fuel. And that would be important. If a woman was ever pregnant and yet she was too thin, not a good thing. But if a woman was pregnant and she had some extra body fat, well, that body fat could be utilized as fuel for her and the baby. Okay, so now why would I differ, though, the amount of macronutrients, which are carbs, proteins, and fat, or workouts, if I don't do it between men and women? Because I do it between body types. That's the difference, right? If someone is more of the endomorph body type or the kapha body type, and remember, starting in episode 900, I did a weekly show on Ayurveda for about 100 episodes. Check that out. Starting with episode 900, go back, you'll learn about the body types. So crucial, because the kapha body type cannot do as many starches as the vata body type. And you can clearly see these people. So people are like, oh, I don't really believe body types. Well, it would literally be like burying your head in the sand, because you can see people, and one person, their calves are very, very thin. And let's say neither person exercises. And then you have one person and they have pretty robust calves. Well, it's the difference between a kapha body type with the thicker calves and a vata body type with the more narrow calves. And it's not good or bad. It just is. So we know that there are distinct body types, right? Like some people have more rounder heads. Some people have longer, more oval heads or faces. Some people have longer, thinner necks. Some people have shorter necks, right? It's the difference between the vata and the kapha. So that's when it differs. Vata body types need more carbs. They need more starches. There's no doubt about that. They're highly neurologically, I wouldn't even say adaptive, but they use more of that central nervous system. And that's one of the reasons for that fast metabolism. And the kapha body type, well, they use less of that. And the preponderance, or I keep using that word, and it's not even used properly, they're more predisposed to being able to tap into a slower fuel source, which namely be body fat. So you're going to do a lot of veggies, but lower in starches. So hopefully that gets you started. But again, I did a show on all these body types, so check that out, and that will hopefully really walk you down the path. Okay, thank you for writing in. Zoe, appreciate you. Caitie's up next. Hi, Dr. Cabral. Thank you for all you do. Listening to your podcast and reading The Rain Barrel Effect has impacted my life greatly for the better. I'm writing you about my 55-year-old mother. She seems to be starting menopause. She goes from freezing cold to a hot flash with lightheadedness, seemingly randomly. The hot flashes seem to be worsened by stress. The hot flashes are almost unbearable and keep her up most nights. Her last period was over 90 days ago. She started black cohosh with no help. She's been taking ashwaganda for 6 months, and that has helped sustainably with brain fog and mood balance until of the recent. Do you have any recommendations as to what things may help her with these symptoms, or do you think that this could be something other than menopause contributed to this? Any help suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Well, for sure, I believe that you're describing menopause-based symptoms. There's no doubt about that. Okay, what do I see 9 out of 10 times? Estrogen dominance in menopause. Okay, so what do we need to do? Well, a couple things. There's a product called Estrovera. Estrovera. And you might need a doctor to give you a link for that. Why don't you do this? We'll do it for you. We will do this for you. Email my team. Why don't you do support@equilibriumnutrition.com and just say, Dr. Cabral recommended I email you for a link to Estrovera. And that is typically it's only provided for doctors. It's not a medication. It's actually a rhubarb extract. In 72% of women, it helped fix those hot flashes. And you just take one literally before bed. Now, that's not the only thing, okay? Because I don't believe in a cure in a pill, okay? So what we need to do is you're on the right track with the ashwagandha, but it's not enough, okay? What I recommend is called our ultimate deep sleep protocol. Now, your mom might be the best sleeper in the whole world. Fine. But what I would like her to do at least is 1, full spectrum magnesium at lunch, 2 at dinner, the deep sleep protocol at night, and then use the adrenal soothe at 2 to 3 capsules at dinner, maybe 1 at lunch. Again, I can't give you exact recommendations. I can't practice medicine over a podcast. That's not how this works, right? So, I mean, if you did one thing, I would run a thyroid adrenal hormone test. Just run the thyroid adrenal hormone test, and then you'll actually get a personalized wellness protocol from us. So that would be the best thing. But the other recommendations I just gave you, along with the foundational level 2, is what I would start with. Again, if this was my mom and she said, I don't want to run a lab and I don't want to do this. Now, of course, I would run the lab, right? I'd get those omega-3s in. You need omega-3s. You need your magnesium. You need your ashwagandha, but not just ashwagandha, the phospholyserine, the L-theanine, all those great herbs as well. Okay, next question. It's from Anonymous. Hello, Dr. Ball. I was hoping you could address binge eating disorder in a more objective way in terms of explaining why it happens in certain people and if this is a brain-based evolutionary response or the results of an over-imbalance in the body. I've completed the 21-day detox, the CBO protocol, and several 7-day detoxes. During all protocols, I felt amazing during the first couple of weeks as I modeled the 3 meals a day habit and daily 12-hour fast. But then I began to develop an intense desire for foods, not on the list during the 2 to 3 weeks, or during the second and third weeks. This was not a typical craving for sugar, starch, processed foods, but almost a primal desire to binge on nuts, nut butters, and hummus. This has never happened to me before these protocols, but after reading about binge eating disorder, it led me to questions of food restrictions. I know you operate under the idea that this lifestyle allows you to eat healthy foods rather than restrict unhealthy ones, and you don't believe in counting calories or complete restriction with the use of flex meals. However, for me, on all occasions, this behavior was very immediate and was not something I felt like I could change my mindset about or talk myself out of it, for it felt like my brain was convincing me that it was a survival necessity to binge. This is a great question. Thank you, Anonymous, for writing in. Okay, I can't begin to tell you the amount of women and a few men that have come into our practice with previous eating-based disorders. It is a regular occurrence, and we're talking like at least once a week. And this has been for many, many years. So what I'd like to say is this, is that they happen for different reasons. Many times there was a trauma or a stress in I'm just gonna use females for an example right now, just because if there was 100 people that came in with an eating-based disorder, 98 or 99 would be women in my practice. Now, it might be very different in other practices, but all I can give you is my real-world experience. So somewhere between the ages of 8 years old and maybe 16 years old, there was some type of trauma, bullying, emotional-based disturbance, stress, divorce in the family that could have led to an eating-based disorder, whether it may be an anorexia or bulimia or some type of binge eating. And there are many, many different forms. And so we have to be respectful of that. What I want to say is this, is that all of those are absolutely true and they should be addressed at a therapeutic level. So they should be addressed on a mindset level. They should be addressed on a trauma level with counseling, and it all should be addressed on a body level, because oftentimes stress hormones and GABA and neurotransmitters and cortisol levels can be off. So what we do is we actually help people on a biological level, which absolutely does help change their mind. Like, it changes how they look at the trauma. The trauma doesn't stop to have not having happened, but we can actually reframe it differently. And so, it takes some time, but it absolutely does work. Now, there's another part to this, Anonymous, that you could be dealing with. Now, maybe you're someone that's already lean. Maybe you're someone that is, once you've met your 2-week mark of your fasting or your detox, you may actually need more starches. You may need more food. You may actually need more calories. And that's why your body's saying, I need more nuts. I need more nut butters. I need more hummus. Like, you might need more of it. And so what we want to make sure is that's why we don't do calorie deprivation at all. We always say, okay, we're going to do these fasting periods to increase what's called autophagy or autophagy. But it's very important that we also do that, yes, but we also listen to our body. And maybe the 3rd week is too much for you. Maybe at that point, we have to transition back into your regular diet where you're eating a little bit more of your healthy fats, a little bit more of your starches, and that would be okay too. So I want to look at it from multiple standpoints. Is there something in the past? Is there a trauma being brought forward to present day? Or is there actually, you actually need more food, right? You can't go that low for that long. I hope that's helpful. And we actually have 3 different ways to do the detox, the 21-day detox. So the first way is the simplest. You do 3 7-day detoxes, and the first 2 days are the shake fasting days. And the second way is the week 2 and the week 3, you only do 1 shake fasting day. And then you go back to your normal, eating plan as laid out by the detox. And then the third way is that you do the first 2 days of the 21-day detox, the shake fasting days, and the rest of the time is days 3 through 21 of your regular eating plan, like your regular plan in general. So there's multiple ways to do this. Remember, we work with people from all walks of life, and I hope that question was helpful. And thank you for writing in. I appreciate you putting yourself out there and allowing us to help many people with this question. Chris is up next. Hello. So I'm 20-year-old male, and I've been suffering with what I think is some type of fungal overgrowth in my intestines for a couple of years. I was diagnosed with Lyme disease when I was 17. I took a month of doxycycline. For those that don't know, that's the antibiotic typically given for Lyme. 2 months of monocycle and 2 months of Tindamax. Ever since I took we're written in 2 different ways, but the minocycline, I have felt completely out of it. It feels like I'm living in a dream. I have terrible fatigue, zero libido, joint pain, many food imbalances that I've never had before in my life. I've tried every Candida diet, enzyme, and herbal supplement possible, and I'm beginning to lose hope. Nothing is giving me any relief. I took a neurotransmitter test, and both my serotonin and dopamine are off the charts low. Also, I noticed that my symptoms get much worse when I eat fermented foods like milk kefir. I was wondering if you think that you would be able to help my condition. Thank you, Chris. Okay, keep in mind, people always ask, and I appreciate that because I used to be in the same position. We don't treat disease. We don't treat names of disease. We rebalance the body from a root causal level. So we help everyone. And this doesn't, I'm not saying that from an ego-based perspective, but when you stop looking at things as a disease and you start actually finding out what you have too little of, vitamins, mineral, or in Chris's case, mitochondrial energy, and we'll talk about that in a second, or too much of something like heavy metals, candida, SIBO, parasites, H. pylori, viruses, we find those and we eradicate. So the difference is this. We don't tell people that we're going to quote unquote cure them overnight, right? What we do is rebalance the body at a deep level. And when we do that, disease, fatigue, irritability, or this zombie-like state can't exist. Here's what happened, Chris, most likely, because I work with lots of people with Lyme. They've done the multiple months of the antibiotics. The antibiotics work to kill the bacteria created from the tick itself, the deer tick, which we call Lyme disease. Actually, Lyme is where it originated, right? That's the name of the city, the town actually. Here's the interesting thing. When you're taking all those very powerful antibiotics, nobody ever tells you that you're destroying your gut balance and you're wiping out your mitochondria. People go from, let's say, 800 mitochondria a cell to like 200. Well, think about that if you're running at 20, 25% of your energy, because you can't actually produce it, right? You can't produce more energy because the mitochondria are the energy producers inside of the cell. Super important to look at that. And I know people always say, I've done this Candida protocol, I've done that. So did I. And I did them for a decade and they didn't work. What I developed was something called the Candida and Bacterial Overgrowth Protocol. Doesn't even really have a fancy name. My Equilibrium Nutrition team is working on a fancier name. I just call it what it is. So you've done other ones before, but I can tell you this, if you have not done our protocol, it's not the same. And I say that to people out there, not for ego-based sake. We sell 9 products for the lowest price possible in the world because this is a protocol we know that's helped thousands of people, potentially well over 10,000 people. And I mean, probably well over 10,000 people for sure now. And this is something that I want to give to you as well. But here's the thing. Run an organic acids test, run a stool test. If you only do 2 labs, that's what I would do. I would do the organic acids test. I would do the stool test. And if possible, I would also run the thyroid adrenal hormone, or if you want to save $100, run the adrenal hormone. See what your cortisol levels are like. They're probably depleted. Look at your other hormones. Are they depleted? What about your DHEA? Depleted. Your immune system is not going to be balanced at that point. Inflammation is going to be running rampant. So what we need to do is correct the body at such a deep root causal level in order to help you heal. We also need to rebuild the mitochondria, but don't start using specialty supplements just to rebuild the mitochondria. What you need to do is actually get your immune system to calm down, to not be as aggravated. And that might have to do with getting rid of what's going on in the gut, sealing the gut, and yes, being careful of the highly fermented foods right now, especially if you have Candida overgrowth or if you have higher histamines. You know, like, again, people preach or did like kombucha for everyone. Well, that's not true. It's like I always feel like I'm the only one going against the grain sometimes, but I'm not doing it to be difficult. I'm doing it because it simply doesn't work for everyone, right? In your case, like a keto-based diet would potentially be, well, you might feel better in the beginning because you're starving, right? The so-called Candida bacterial overgrowth, but eventually you're going to need to eat carbs and you don't have any glucose for your nervous system. So it's not what to do. We need to look at this at a much deeper level. So Chris, that's where I would get started. All right. Organic acids test, stool test to start, ideally the adrenal hormone as well. Well, if you can run the whole big 5, right? I'd love to see a hair tissue mineral analysis too. So that's what I would do. And that is where to get started. Okay. I am actually recording this right before I go into a private wellness client consultation. So today, this is going to be the last question of the day, but keep in mind, we answer your questions each and every weekend. And of course, you can get your question answered over at cabralsupportgroup.com. Let's get in one more question. It is Amelie, I believe, Ameli. Hi, Dr. Cabral. Thank you for your sharing your wealth of knowledge. I'm a 35-year-old female here. I was recently diagnosed with localized scleroderma in the hands, mostly, and feet. I ran a comprehensive blood test with my thyroid and electrolytes and DHEA, minerals, etc. Everything came back normal except for very low T3 and very high PTH. I have had Raynaud's for 18 years. Don't know the actual underlying root cause. So basically, I'm looking at calcification of the connective tissue, swollen hands, excruciating pain. I have calcium crystals in my hands. After lots of reading, I started supplementing with D3 and K2. I am trying to eliminate as much greens and beets and other oxalate-forming foods since they aggravate my condition. Any thought? Recommendations on what to do or where to start? Note the cause has been linked to extreme endurance sports, such as running, cycling, or triathlons for the last 19 years that have affected my, a thyroid, and 2 bouts of anorexia at 18 and 15 years ago, with 12 years of amenorrhea, which is the loss of your menstrual cycle. Thank you very much for anything you can help with. Okay, I'm happy to help with this. And I know that you're saying that this was caused by a lot of your endurance sports, but technically they weren't. They were a catalyst for the stress that they caused in your body, which then led to the Raynaud's and the scleroderma is how you pronounce it, scleroderma. And this is a hardening and tightening of the hands typically and wrists, and it is inflammatory based. But here's the thing, there's a root cause to everything, and I don't want you to think that there's not a root cause for this as well. I need to look at a few things. Usually the issue is this. Yes, I agree. Lower oxalate diet for now. Fine, agree with it. I would actually run the organic acids test to confirm that. A lot of people don't know this. It will show you if you're sensitive to oxalates on an organic acids test. Amazing test. But a lot of times, these oxalates can be formed as a byproduct of candida overgrowth, as well as low levels of vitamin C, even though vitamin C has been implicated with higher levels of oxalates. And that's because it's not being processed properly. So lots of natural vitamin C, not a lot of excessive synthetic vitamin C, especially from corn. Okay, so what else can I tell you? Magnesium. If you're not doing magnesium and an activated B complex, you have to be doing those. That is what allows you to remove oxalates from the body. Okay, very, very important. You also want to be looking into something like Adrenal Soothe, which calms stress levels. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. Because one of the reasons you might have low T3 is because this is being converted to reverse T3. And reverse T3 is caused by, it's typically shunted over to reverse T3 because of some type of stress. Now, could be viral or gut or environmental toxicity, but there's something going on. So my opinion is this. I would run a thyroid adrenal hormone test. The reason why I would run it with your local functional medicine doctor or integrative health practitioner or at equilibriumnutrition.com is because you want a real comprehensive program. You need to look at the whole body. You need to be looking at cortisol 4 times throughout the day and not just being like, hey, everything's in range. Well, it's fine that everything's in range, but what are they relative to each other? It's not about just the range themselves. It's about relativity and what does it look like with everything else responding in your body. So that's what I would do. I'd run the thyroid adrenal hormone and I would, no doubt about it, I would run the starter kit with that. So thyroid adrenal hormone plus the starter kit. The starter kit is the hair tissue mineral analysis. We'll show you calcium to magnesium. It will let you know how deficient you may or may not be. And it will also show you any heavy metal excretion. That's amazing. And then it will show you the organic acids test. 75 biomarkers. It'll show you your B vitamins and B6 that I was just speaking about, higher levels potentially of dopamine. It just sounds like kind of you're like a type A personality, which again, it kind of takes one to know one. So it's maybe you are, maybe you're not. Maybe I'm just assuming. But I work with a lot of people in my practice that they're go-getters, and that can sometimes be taken too far. Again, I may know that from personal experience. So that's how we can help. And of course, you never have to work with us. You can work with anyone that is able to oversee this program, and that would be great as well. That is where I would start. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this weekend to our Cabral House Calls. I appreciate you. And as always, please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve. Now for me, back to work. Take care, everyone. Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or a lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests, or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.